Welcome to the Momentum Matters podcast, where we have courageous conversations with women leaders. You'll hear about their accomplishments, their experiences, their challenges, and best advice. If you are inspired by women who have overcome the barriers and gone on to do extraordinary things, you are in the right place.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into Momentum Matters. I'm thrilled to have on the podcast today Cristy and Ryan of RamLea Partners. They are no stranger to momentum. As a matter of fact, you should probably pause this episode and go check out our YouTube library if you haven't recently. We provide free virtual trainings each and every month, and Cristy and Ryan led a pretty powerful talk last year around the unspoken power of authenticity. So I highly encourage you to go check that out if you haven't seen them in action yet. But I'm excited to dive into today's conversation around authenticity and remembering humanness at work. We talk about core values. Of course, you know me, we're going to talk about AI. And I'm just so excited for the rich conversation that you're going to get to hear. So please enjoy RamLea Partners. Hey, everybody. I am here with Cristy Swint and Ryan Graham of RamLea Partners. Let's talk about the name, how you all got started, what drew you into this work that you're doing today.
Thank you so much for having us. So we met each other first when we were working on a project together. A coach in town was doing an intensive training, and we were organizing the curriculum and the venue and all that for him. So after that experience, Ryan invited me to coffee. We sat at a table and we had this amazing conversation. We joked that we walked away with an LLC, an EIN number, and a bank account to make all our deposits in.
I love it.
And it's been the best 2 years of my professional life. I had really been wanting and striving and praying for a business partner for 10 years. So when I met Ryan and we had so much in common, her strengths are things that I'm not strong in, and some of the strengths I bring to the table are things that she doesn't enjoy to do. So it's just this great partnership, and we've been working together ever since.
So 2 years.
Yes.
So talk us through what business you are in, what y'all are looking to bring to companies, and why that work is so important.
Yeah, we truly believe, Cristy and I, the heartbeat is we love people. We believe that people are the greatest resource within inside organizations. And we have a strong desire for really helping organizations not only to understand their core values, but to align those, because those are the engine that really drives everything. And then when you bring the people inside that, really helping them to make decisions based off what the core values are inside the company.
So how do you encourage leaders to address the humanness that is at work with people? Obviously we're all moving at such a pace that sometimes we can become so focused on tasks that we do forget about aligning those core values. So how do you walk leaders through assessing how they can be addressing the human component at work?
Well, bottom line is very important. We know that KPIs are very important. But if we don't address the person behind the KPIs or the person behind the bottom line, then we cannot reach the goals, be successful, do the things that we need to do. So engaging them as humans also engages productivity.
So research shows that when managers engage their employees, build trust, and empower their teams, there's a 23% increase in profitability. So that piece of research alone is very intriguing to the companies that we serve. It also goes on to say in that research that 59% lower rates of turnover when managers are actively invested and engaged building trust with the people that they're leading. Wow. So it's a tremendous opportunity for them to not only increase productivity, but to retain the talent that they have.
So where do you start with that? Like, okay, let's say you've got a leader that is really process-oriented, task-oriented. How do you draw them into that human element where they are thinking about relationships? Where can you even start with that? It seems so big.
Yeah, that's a great question, because most companies are focused on those performance reviews. Let's go through performance reviews. Let's see how well you're doing. We really believe in the incorporated feedback systems. What does it look like to actually have open, honest conversations where not only are we open to asking questions of curiosity and receiving feedback, but giving feedback. So this kind of open communication line, if you will, is one way we feel like is important.
And it's so important with our diverse generations, all the folks that come to the table in today's workforce. And we have our boomers at the helm of our corporations. We have our Zers coming in fresh out of college, ready to hit the ground running. Yeah. And there can be a disconnect between those people groups, just developmentally, life experience, messaging as we're being raised in our communities. So it's important that that feedback system incorporate top down, but also down top, so that we can have a more organized and intentional conversation.
So I'm thinking about that down top level. How do you encourage someone who's not sure how to give feedback when leading up? How do you encourage someone to find their voice in that? Are there elements that need to be there in order for that to be effective?
Absolutely. We have a proprietary system that we love to encourage our younger folks to learn and to implement. It's called TRACE.
Okay.
And it stands for trust, respect, awareness, curiosity, and engagement. So it's piece by piece understanding what those soft skills look like to speak with someone who might think differently than you, might be performing differently and have a different expectation of that position than you might even understand. How to have those emotionally intelligent professional conversations that bring in that human factor, de-escalate what might feel like a conflict situation so they can move forward with confidence.
Emotional intelligence is a really big focus here at Momentum for us. How do you all see emotional intelligence? What are maybe we've got someone listening who isn't really even sure what that exactly means. What does it mean to you all? How do you define it? And then what are some of those elements that people can look to sharpen about themselves and their own emotional intelligence?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like emotional intelligence first piece is awareness. I mean, if there's no awareness towards it, then there's no way to improve that in our lives. And so we were actually looking at a study not too long ago. We were doing a project, and it said like 95% of people believe they are aware.
Yeah.
But it's actually only 10 to 15% that actually are aware. So if we're all walking around, there's 10 to 15% of us that are actually aware, then it's hard to even gravitate towards improving that skill set.
Yeah.
So
our connection growth system is defined like this: becoming authentically aware of who you are in order to strengthen how you relate to the world around you. So that is the filter that we use as we're training, whether it be the executive team, CEO, C-suite, it could be middle management, and even down to your technicians, your service providers. It's so important for us to understand who we are and what we were created and designed to do intrinsically, so that we can strengthen how we relate to those that might be different than us.
And so as you work with teams, maybe as you think about, from the C-suite all the way to, you mentioned like mechanics, is there one piece that people are most unaware about themselves, other than just what maybe they were wired to do? Is there one thing that sticks out that y'all see as a common thread or a common denominator?
I think something that we see that is across the board is just this inability or the inability to see that what I have to bring is valuable and deserves to be seen, heard, recognized, and valued as a part of how we run this organization.
Okay.
Top down, bottom up. Not everyone has that intrinsic confidence that what I bring to the table has value, and that's an underlying theme that we've experienced through our coaching.
yeah, and I'd add to that too, just people step into roles. I mean, I think as children we're told what to do, and so we do the thing, right? And so we step into our roles doing our role, performing our responsibilities in the office. We don't even know that we can speak, out loud the things that we have a value to provide to a company, an organization, an entity. That can expand our position, our role, or even our team development. So
it's funny you mentioned that. I was just recently convicted by my 5-year-old in the car. I asked him I was asking both of my boys what they wanted to be when they grow up. And my first, of course, wants to be Batman. And how did I forget that? And then my 5-year-old, who so often makes me think and stop, he said, well, why do I have to be a thing? And I was like,
Wisdom.
you know what?
Out of the mouth of babes.
Maybe I've gotten it wrong. maybe we should be thinking,
Yeah.
how do I want to be in the world? And then what do I bring that to?
That's right.
I'm not necessarily that thing. I bring myself to that work. So it sounds exactly like what you were saying. My 5-year-old was saying in the back seat the other day. And I think, to your point, we do grow up as children being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not how do you want to be when you grow up? So that's so good. Well, so thinking about that human element, how have you all seen, maybe in the organizations that you work with, AI helping or hurting that piece of what you're trying to address in organizations?
I think with AI, I mean, to me, it's an added bonus to everything that we're doing. I mean, we have intellectual property that is ours and ours alone.
Yeah.
To be able to expand on it or even talk to another generation in a way that we might not be able to. So one of the ways that we have it, hey, you're going to talk to your boss who might be 60 years old and you're 20.
Right.
How do you approach the situation? How do you disarm him to say, I hear what you're saying, and also I have something to say too?
Yeah.
How do I create that kind of feedback system? So that's one way that I feel like is important, just to learn how to communicate with different generations. I think AI has been hugely beneficial to that.
Yes, and I feel like it opens up the opportunity for us to learn more about how other generations, the language that they use. I mean, you can go into ChatGPT and say, I want to communicate with the CEO of this company. He's, 68 years old. What language would be appropriate? Because that's already put in a system, and you can learn to expand how you communicate.
Yeah.
And also be able to touch those points where they're going to understand the words in the phrasing and the dialect that you're using. So it can be beneficial that way too.
And I think also to mention, even about going back to your son and some of this, coming up with what are my core values? How do I step inside of an organization, provide them with things that really align with who I am, to be able to provide my skill set, my character traits, to the table, and not just live inside that role. What are my code of ethics? So I think for organizations, it does help for us to define that, and we can easily put it in. These are the things that I love. This is what I have. We help me really narrow the gap on what my core values are.
So, well, it is good. I want to go back to where we started. I'm curious, as we're talking and y'all have all this experience, what led you to want to do this work? Was it experiences you had in the past, maybe in toxic environments? I'm just curious because this is so important. And I would love for you to share kind of where your heart for all of this came from.
So I started early in my career as a doula and a childbirth educator.
Wow.
So I had the opportunity to walk into these high stakes and more risky environments with the birth.
Yeah.
It was a high risk birth. What I found was not everyone in the hospital room was looking forward to me being there as a non-medical provider.
Okay.
So I had to learn very early on in my career the value of humanity and me looking at the medical provider through the lens of compassion, grace, honor, respect. So I learned early on how to dance around what could be potential conflict or cause my client distress. And that brought me into the boardroom at a local hospital where I was the liaison between the doula community and the medical providers. And I was able to offer perspective changes, perspective shifts, and just change management within the medical profession when it comes to childbirth and the process. So for me, it lit a fire under me to want to incorporate, how do we just love the person sitting across the table from us that we may not understand, we may not relate to, we may not have anything in common with, that we're serving this common purpose. In that instance would have been my client, their patient, and make this a successful event. So that was kind of the heartbeat of how I got started.
Right. And mine was different, vastly different, but similar. We have very similar stories. I feel like we've always been kind of 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
I was a massage therapist.
Oh, wow.
But prior to that, I got a degree from Auburn in audiology and communication disorders. So very vastly different from the vocation that I actually chose.
Yeah.
I think my dad, after he paid for college, was like, blink, blink, what are you doing? But I knew in my heart, like, what I had chosen to do in college was not the path I needed to be on.
Yeah.
So I went down that path and just was quiet. I'm always type A, talker, all the things. And in that space of being quiet, it really fell on my spirit. I told Cristy this a while back, that to be able to pause and read nonverbal communication, be very intuitive for what the client's needs were. That really taught me so much about, even though they don't say it, there's so many needs beyond the surface in a human being, and humans are so complex. And so just helping people to bring forward their voice and what they're feeling inside, and that intuitive self of, I've never been able to speak into the truth of who I am. So really just that provides, that space to provide someone has been just so enlightening.
That's awesome. Thank y'all for sharing that. I never would have guessed that that's where you all started out, but makes total sense how you got here. So with core values, what do you encourage individuals when maybe they're walking through a core values exercise? I remember when I did it at first, it's like, how am I going to choose from this list? How do I whittle it down? You know, what do you suggest? Is there a specific number people should try to lean into? Are there too many, too little? What would you say to people who are like, I just have no idea where to start on that?
So I think individually, being able to understand what it is that anchors you on earth, what is your purpose,
Yeah.
can help you make decisions for anything. Is this the home I buy? Is this the neighborhood I live in? Are these the groceries that I purchase? I mean, it really sounds silly, but you really can filter every decision through who I am. So I originally started off with a program that I was able to narrow down to like 4 core pillars of who is Cristy.
Yeah.
And then does this align, is the trajectory of this job change or this client or this school for my kids, does this align with my core values? There's not a perfect number, but honestly, in order to be able to bring that forward on a regular basis, 3 to 4 is a good start.
Okay.
And being able just to filter every decision through how does this align with our core values as an individual, as a family, as a company, and being consistent with that filter, I think is most valuable.
That's good. I have 3, so it's good to hear you say 3 to 4. As people are maybe going through that exercise, I know another thing I experienced was, okay, if I don't pick family, does that mean that I'm not a good person? So how do you encourage people to, make those tougher choices on, it doesn't make you a bad person if you value something over another thing? How do y'all have those conversations with leaders?
We don't have those conversations with leaders, but I think that if they, if there's a portion of their core value that has some sort of family involvement in it, then it's not like they're skirting around it. You know, it's like, what is that core value that can also encompass family? So therefore, I don't feel guilty, or I can just press forward. That is the one that we've talked about.
And I think core values can get muddy. We want to put core values in categories, but what would it look like if we just put them in how we operate? So, for example, RamLea Partners core values are authenticity, connection, and growth. So when I'm going to make a decision in our business, is what I'm doing authentic to who we are, the skills that we bring to the table, and what we have to offer the community around us?
Yeah.
Are we connecting with our community on a greater scale going into this corporation or this nonprofit and doing this coaching work? And then how are we growing this organization, the individuals in the organization? How are we growing as individuals? And how is this helping our business to grow?
Yeah.
So it's not so great. It's not so categorized like family or faith or finances. It's more global in that what is the outcome going to be when we align with these values?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We had a man, a business owner, CEO of an organization, a family-built organization. They have core values from the very beginning. And there was, this long on a wall. And we were like, wow.
Lots to maintain.
If you were to say, if you were to say what your core values were, what are they? And he just like leaned back in his chair and he's like, people, purpose, profit. And we were like, great. So we just went from there and really just helped him to define what people actually meant.
Yeah.
What purpose actually meant, what profit actually meant. Cause he was like, I don't want to sound selfish if I'm sound greedy if I say profit. And we're like,
you have to run this business.
This is a for-profit business. And what can you do, with that profit?
Yeah.
So it was very, it was very good for us to hear, even though they're slapped on a wall, that it was powerful.
Yeah, that's good. And good that y'all helped him take it from this long list to
Because there's
just
so
a
many
few.
words on our mission statements,
Yeah.
our vision statements, that sometimes it's hard to incorporate. What does this even mean? But if you can get to the 3 or 4, and we serviced a company that had like 5, and they were very distinct and very easy to remember. But just keeping it and tight so that you can actually remember what they are, and then filter your decisions through those.
Is there a way, I'm hearing y'all say filtering decisions through those, and I think, one of the things that comes to mind to me as something that I could do a better job at is auditing how frequently I'm doing that, making those decisions through those filters. Is there a way that you encourage people to keep that top of mind? Where, again, organizations are moving very quick, and I think it can be easy to just move in a direction and not take time to pause. What are some ways that y'all would encourage leaders to work that in when maybe it's not natural for them?
I think the most important aspect is having global buy-in in your entire company, and that starts with either the coaching process or consulting, whether you bring someone in and help everyone understand and it's a global situation, or if it's just every day, every week in your weekly meetings, your all hands meetings, emphasizing what the core values are and how the leadership team is making those decisions. That then trickles down to everyone, whether it be whatever their position is. And then there's a high value for that alignment and making sure that we're making, and then it breaks down this opportunity for micromanagement and should I do this? Should I not do this? It gives the other team members autonomy to step forward with confidence in making that next decision without having to run it up the line every time.
Yeah, an example too, we were coaching recently inside an organization, and we went back to the feedback system. We said, did you use the core values as your way of asking questions? Did this align with this?
Yeah.
Did this behavior, did this? And the individual was like, you're right, I could have asked it this way, so just utilizing it almost as your roadmap to a yes or a no. There's so much more clarity, there's so much productivity, there's so much more efficiency in utilizing a core value.
Do you think it's helpful with teams? Okay, you've got an organization-wide core values mapped out. I'm thinking of how often organizations use, and rightfully so, personality assessments to kind of know who's who and how they operate. Do you all encourage organizations to have individuals bring their core values to the table so there's an understanding there that, maybe Ryan really values fun. So how can I as a leader incorporate that with my relationship with Ryan? Do y'all encourage that?
Absolutely. I believe it's important for people to know that you're working with the human side of you. You cannot separate who you are personally and professionally.
Right.
We walk in and out of spaces every single day, and we share that with you, I think, when we originally spoke. But it's so important for people to know, who am I?
Yeah.
And how do I function and operate every day? Cristy and I created an assessment. There's so many amazing assessments out there, but how can we give organizations that, what is the emotional capacity? Who is the person behind the task? What do they feel about the culture? What does the culture say? Compensation, community, and engagement. So it really tells you even more beyond just a core value. But I think core values at the very, very top are so important to communicate with your boss,
Yeah.
or colleague. That's
Right.
And when you're looking for a new opportunity, I'm thinking maybe, one of the things I often tell our interns is, please interview us as much as we're interviewing you.
That's right.
Do you encourage people when they're maybe seeking a new opportunity to make sure that those core values of the organization are in alignment? How can they do that in a way that, is efficient and they can maybe see behind the curtain a little
That's
bit?
right. So even during the interview process, going into that meeting, having researched the company, search their website, search their LinkedIn post, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? Can you find the core values on their website? What do they mean to you? What do they mean to the company? And engaging that on the front end of the interview process can be a make or break of how successful this relationship can be for both parties.
Yeah.
So we know businesses don't want to bring in someone who don't align with their core values, and if vice versa.
Yeah.
We can really streamline the process if we can get that on the front end and have buy-in on the front end with our talent.
Yeah, I even share, I was speaking to a dean recently
Yeah.
at a school, and she shared, she was like, I figured out my core values, I figured out my code of ethics. And she said, and the hardest part was I had to walk back in the organization and say, I no longer align. So I believe it is such an important factor now in who we are,
Yeah.
especially what the generation below us is teaching us, just all about self-care and mitigating stress and mitigating burnout. These are the things that you want to make sure you're personally aligned with.
Yeah. Speaking on that, we have a newer team member who is just graduated college, and I've been so impressed by her ability to hold boundaries, come in with those, just really stay true to who she is and what she desires. It has been so refreshing to see that. I mean, I remember starting out my career, it was you needed to be the first one in, last one out. You didn't show your human side.
That says a lot about your character,
Right.
that you would be willing to see the uniqueness that she brings to the table and champion that in her. Because you're right, we can get caught up in our own messaging as generations. When I grew up, if you fell down and skinned your knee, you just put a little dirt on it and kept going,
Right.
There was no emotional conversation. There was no getting down and seeing you eye to eye. And so our younger generations coming up have really given us the opportunity to grow and expand and reach into the authenticity of who we are together. So I love so much that you saw that part of her and you championed that in her.
Well, I just wish I had come into an organization like she did. I mean, just wise beyond her years. Well, we've talked about so much already, so I do want to lean in a little bit on those organizations that you do work with. How does an organization know when it's time to engage with people like you who do this important work and can really shift an entire culture? Are there symptoms that a team could look for to know it's time for us to engage with people to help us?
Right. I think, a lot of family businesses we engage with as well, some that are going through acquisitions. So just could mean, a lot of changes or a lot of incorporating different core values inside an organization or an effective feedback system, something that someone or a business organization doesn't have in place yet is very important. Middle level managers that might not have the clarity on how to engage people. They're really good at their roles and responsibilities, but they don't necessarily know how to flip the grid a little bit and manage people. So that will come in those.
Right. And also, if a company is hoping to expand or has already expanded and maybe outgrown their infrastructure, so that's where we can come in and do that global assessment, find out more about who is who within the organization, how are they experiencing the culture, how are they experiencing the management teams, that we can give some feedback that would help them know, does this need to be restructured? Is this something that you need to consider changing? And this expansion here is now the time. Do we pump the brakes? And so we don't come in and tell companies what they have to do.
Yeah.
We just assess, get the information, the feedback, their strengths, and then places for improvement. And then we give that opportunity for them to make those calls, and we can collaborate together to create a system or a program for them.
That makes sense. And as you were describing it, I was thinking about how scary it must feel to know that someone's about to turn the rock over and see what all's underneath. How do you encourage leaders to embrace that? Maybe it's really uncomfortable. Maybe they're going to find out things that they weren't aware of. How do you encourage them to take that step to know that there are going to be really good rewards on the other side?
Right. I think it's hard because we're not handing them a tangible. Here, your hours are going to improve.
Yeah.
However, I do feel like if you value and have a high value for your people inside your organization, to take a granular look inside the organization and say, how can we improve this? And be really vulnerable with, this is going to increase growth. If we take a look at some of the blind spots that we potentially have, I think sometimes leaders in organizations, we feel like, and I can speak to this, we feel like we're doing it so well that we don't see or experience the blind spots,
right?
Because we only are experiencing the high points. And so ways to improve, this is, I feel like, the only way to get a granular look inside of it.
Right. And when we have things like expansions or management changes, we have to go back to the core values. Is this decision anchored in these core values? And so how do we train through the lens of these core values? because everything that a company does, small business, large corporation, everything in between, impacts our community as a whole. It's our small business owners, our nonprofits, and our corporations that are keeping our streets paved in our communities, keeping the lights on, feeding the needy, and making sure that our community as a whole is thriving, vibrant, and continuing to prosper.
And I always speak to the team growth as well. You take a CEO or a founder of an organization that started it and built it and slowly added more people to his organization or her organization. And over time, you have all these teams. So there's no way to really grow, I feel like, unless you are looking at, okay, what are we doing that we can improve upon for, growth here.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like when teams are experiencing growth, when organizations are experiencing growth or transition, is primarily when they need to take this look. Does it stop there, or does it become a need or something to be addressed every certain number of years? What do y'all typically see?
I think having an audit on a regular basis really gives them how successful are our changes.
Yeah.
How satisfied are the people who are coming into these new positions? How confident they feel in these positions, so that they can continue learning, adjusting. There's no finite linear growth path, and we can have like linear numbers when it comes to our humanity. There's no linear path that we're going to follow, and everyone's going to have we're going to have our folks who are crushing it one quarter, who have an aging parent come home and they're having to caretake for an aging parent, and it changes the trajectory of what their productivity could look like. So having those ongoing audits with assessments and redirects and even those follow-up conversations, I think is real important.
So good.
The re-audits are so important, just to go back inside organizations. You're going to have general attrition anyway.
Right.
So it's like, how do I continue to plug into my people and see where we need to improve, or even create a cohort within the organization, put some seasoned leaders with some emerging leaders, so that the weight of the executive team doesn't have to carry it all.
That's right.
Right. And I heard y'all mention kind of that mid-level manager and how important that is to get those folks coaching. Maybe they have been on a quick rise to that point and need those skills. What do you primarily see as the needs there among those leaders? Is it how to have difficult conversations? Is it knowing what their core values are? What are those key pieces that you're plugging in there with those folks?
Oftentimes when you have companies who have that loyalty policy where you've been with us for 2 years and you've worked well, you've hit your goals, we're going to promote you. And that's the succession plan for each position. What happens is those folks that are being promoted are hard workers. They're good at their job. They do a great job with the task that is required of them. When we promote them to management positions without that management development, then they're a fish out of water trying to figure out, now I'm not in the field doing the work that I'm really, really good at that got me here. Now I have to manage all the people who are doing the work. And so there's that disconnect between how do I connect in this management position. And a lot of companies will have apps and programs where you can go through and take different courses, but there's not a lot of margin in our time to sit down and go through those development processes. So when we can come in and have those conversations one-on-one and even as teams, then it creates not only a respect for that leader in that position. I mean, this person could have been a colleague yesterday.
Right.
And now today they're in this management position. A lot of can be timidity and feelings of insecurity to be able to step into that role with confidence. So when we have even those team coaching sessions, that can build that respect and the understanding of who's who and how do we operate together to keep moving this mission forward.
And I think the engagement piece too, there's a lot of resources out there to go in and plug into yourself, right? And I think it's great to absorb it and have that knowledge, but unless you have an awareness of what I do, how do I do it? How have I done it? What can I improve upon? Then you can look at all the resources, but there's really no application to a deeper level unless you have an awareness towards how I've done it and how I can improve it.
So good. Well, thank you both. This has been an awesome conversation. I love ending with some rapid fire questions. So, ready? I love it. I will just toss these your way as we end this episode, and then we're going to have a bonus episode conversation for our members and dive a little deeper. So, okay, first question is for you, Ryan. Where are you originally from?
Selma.
Oh, really? So cool. Okay, Cristy, now I got to ask you, where are you originally from?
Grew up in Center Point and then moved to Texas and then back to Alabama.
Nice. Okay, so then both Alabama, born and raised. So for both of you, well, I know your answer is going to be Auburn.
Yes.
Auburn or Alabama? Okay, good. Y'all do balance each other out.
We do. Yes.
I love it. Okay, so then the last question I'll ask is, where is the best place you've been recently? Maybe on vacation, maybe somewhere to eat. Where is the best place you've been?
Spain.
Oh,
I just went to Spain, Mallorca. It was absolutely amazing. So yeah, very grateful.
Okay, I'm gonna go the food direction since you dole it out there. Curry Corner in Mountain Brook Village, or it's English Village. It's the best Indian food I've ever had.
She's so
I had a gentleman who cooked Indian for a party one time, and he was truly Indian. That was amazing. But that's Curry
Goodness
Corner
mercy.
all the way.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. We're so appreciative of your time. And again, we'll continue this conversation for our members and hope you'll join us there.
Thank you for listening to Momentum Matters. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast as we share more important conversations with women leaders. We would love for you to rate our show and share with others in your life. This episode of Momentum Matters was produced by Social U and brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama, Protective Life, and Regions Bank. A full list of corporate partners can be found at momentumleaders.org. We also want to thank the individual donors, Momentum members, and volunteers for their commitment to our mission.